Information shared on the following program is for general information purposes only. It does not constitute legal, tax, investment, or other advice, nor is it intended to recommend any particular investments, products, or financial instruments. Always seek advice from your financial advisor, attorney, or accountant with regard to investment, legal, or tax questions.
Welcome to the only show in the country dedicated to helping savers worry less about money, the WorryFree Retirement, with your host, nationally recognized retirement specialist and six-time author and fiduciary, Tony Walker.
As we record today's show on December 5th, 2022, one of the biggest concerns on the hearts and minds of hardworking savers is something we in the financial world refer to as inflation. So what is inflation and how would one define it? Well, I think this nifty little jingle sums it up pretty good. That's right, folks. Simply put, inflation is when a dollar don't buy much anymore. The real question is, knowing that your dollar ain't buying what it used to, what are you supposed to do about it? Well, the financial world certainly has some options, none of which are very good if you ask me. Goofy suggestions like tighten your belt. Translation, quit taking your money from us and start spending less. Or about this one, since inflation is so high, all the more reason to take more risk with your money. And then finally, my all-time favorite I heard once from a financial entertainer on the radio, deliver pizzas at night. So while you are simply trying to figure out how to find additional money to fill your car up with gas, the financial world and all the financial pundits, all they do is add insult to injury. Which is why today I'm going to share with you proven steps to get a strategy in place to deal with inflation. So you ready? Well, let's get started. Well, welcome folks to the Worry-Free Retirement, and yes, I am that little man in the sweater vest, retirement planning specialist and fiduciary, Tony Walker, and today I'm going to share with you the 4 ways to deal with inflation so that the dollar in your pocket will buy as much tomorrow as it does today. But before we get started, let me introduce 2 associates in the Worry-Free production studios who are spending a lot of my dollars to get this show on each and every week. America's favorite financial sidekick, Mr. Aaron Orander, and Louisville, Kentucky's most laid-back graphics artist, Mr. Derek Hudson. Okay, do me a favor right now. If it's convenient, I've got one right here, reach into your wallet or purse, and assuming you're like me, you still can enjoy grabbing this cold, hard, tax-free cash, grab a dollar bill. Okay, you got it? Now, look at that dollar bill as I take you back to the year of my birth in 1960. You with me? Okay. So in 1960, how much would this dollar bill buy versus the same dollar bill purchased today? Well, let's take the cost of a gallon of gasoline. In 1960, the average gallon of gasoline cost 25 cents per gallon. Again, 1960, average cost of gasoline back then was 25 cents a gallon. While today, the average cost per gallon is around $4. So let's think about this. In 1960, this dollar bill would purchase 4 gallons of gas or enough gas to get you from Louisville to Lexington, or for those in Bowling Green, to take you from Bowling Green to Nashville. While on the other hand, today, if you took this same dollar and converted that into gas, the dollar bill would only get you about 1/4 of a gallon, well enough to maybe get you a few miles down the road. That's what you call inflation. Yes, folks, inflation is real, and to deal with the dollar not buying much anymore, the way you stretch this dollar bill further is by following these 4 key ingredients to keeping more of your money in your pocket so that this dollar will last as long as you do. So stay tuned as we explore the 4 keys to battling inflation. I'm Tony Walker. You're watching the Worry-Free Retirement. I'll be right back. With the uncertainty of the stock market, our nation's debt spiraling out of control, and inflation running rampant, now may be the best time to consider moving your 401k to safer territory. My name is Tony Walker, and for over 38 years, I've made it my life's mission to help savers worry less about money, and I want to help you too. To speak with me at no cost or obligation, why don't you log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com or simply call the toll-free number on your screen. Welcome back to the Worry-Free Retirement, and today we're going to cover the 4 ways to combat the effects of inflation. But before we get into these 4 points, I want to emphasize one area of concern that the money managers of the world have right now. And apparently it's not being worried about how much inflation is eating into your retirement, but how these darn high fees they are charging you might have to come to an end. Check this article out addressing the concerns of many money managers who are now having to justify these high fees they've been charging savers for years just for shuffling money around. In other words, it says they're going to have to offer more services for these fees. Moral of the story, if we in this business are going to charge you fees every year to manage your money, I feel that we must do more than just shuffle it around and put it at risk. Not a true retirement planning specialist worth his weight in gold needs to be able to justify charging annual fees, and the only way we do this is by pouring additional service into our clients' lives at no additional cost. So to learn more about our services, might I invite you to go to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. When you get there, just click on that Let's Get Started button. We have a service called the free 10-minute fiduciary phone call where I can talk to you to see if your situation warrants us helping you, and if so, we'll be happy to meet with you in person. All right, so let's get back to the 4 keys to fighting inflation, and the first one is a cost-cutting measure that dovetails off of fees. Okay, so we're going to get into that. The second one is this idea of replacing assets you spend with something called permanent life insurance. The third issue is avoiding risk at all costs. And of course, the fourth one is taking on this philosophy I created called the Live Well, Die Broke philosophy. Now, last week we showed you an example of this whole thing of fees and how much more money managers are making, in this example, well over $200,000 that was in their pocket because of these high fees. But by going with Tony Walker Financial in this example, we freed up over a 20-year period over $200,000 for this particular client that they could use to combat inflation. You see, folks, it should be obvious that the more money you save, the more you will have in the future to spend, and cutting back on those high fees is just one way. But there's also another way to cut back. We call this the 4 cost of money. So it's not just fees that we can save on, but at Tony Walker Financial, we strive to cut back the amount of taxes you owe the government. We try to reduce the amount of premiums you pay to insurance companies. And finally, we try to help you lower interest cost so that you'll have more money in your pocket. So think about this. Every dollar we save you in the way of these costs means that there's more money that you can either, one, spend or you can save for the future. Now, I want to talk about something that number 2, replacing assets that you spend now with permanent life insurance. We're going to get the whiteboard out and take a look at that right now. So it might surprise you to learn that life insurance can be one of the most important assets in retirement. The problem is, since many of you have been listening to people that don't know anything about retirement planning, you've been purchasing probably the most expensive life insurance policy known to man when it comes to planning, called term life insurance. So this is one reason we recommend permanent life insurance. It's this notion of being able to use and enjoy both the principal and the interest, and if you so choose, be able to replace those assets and leave money to your loved ones tax-free when you die. So how would this work? Well, we call it a permission slip. So let's imagine you have no life insurance. Maybe you do have a goal of wanting to leave something to loved ones when you pass away, but you're afraid to spend the money because if you spend the money during retirement and run out of money, well, then you can't leave anything to your heirs. So in the typical example, we'll be talking about this in the next segment, there's something called the 4% rule. Now, this is really goofy. This came out of Wall Street, and what Wall Street would tell you to do is whatever you have, in this example, we're imagining we have a 401k worth $500,000, you're going to spend 4% of whatever that principal is. So we take 4%, that means you have permission from Wall Street. Remember, they don't want you taking all this money away. This is how they make money, is on fees on your money. $20,000 per year. That's how much you'll have to spend. Now keep in mind, regardless of what you might need money for, things that come up with a family, inflation, you're going to follow this rule. Now, as we record this show in December of 2022, the market's trying to come back, But imagine you were living under this rule, you're getting ready to take a distribution, you're retired, and this $500,000 has now dropped to $350,000. We saw this happen recently. So then you'd have to take 4% of $350,000. What is that? $14,000 a year? And you're trying to pay for groceries and increased gas. You just took a pay cut of $6,000. Folks, not only are you risking too much money, but this just doesn't work, especially when markets are going down. So what is the purpose of having permanent life insurance? Well, at Tony Walker Financial, we take a totally different approach because not only are we retirement planning specialists, we're working with savers. We're assuming the people we work with are more concerned about the return of their money than on it. This is why, let's put this up full screen here, and this is why we created something called the split IRA concept. And man, this works wonderfully, especially if we're in markets like we are today. Why? Because we don't put all of your money in the stock market. We split the account up so that there is safety and also that you won't run out of money. We do this through the use of annuities. Now, let's play this out. Maybe you're taking money out, we have an annuity, and the annuity, maybe you live a long time, the annuity is going to guarantee you a lifetime income for the rest of your life. So we don't have this fear of running out of money like we would over at Wall Street. But there's a problem. If you live long enough, upon your death, the annuity more than likely will have nothing left in the account. So you might say, well, that helps a lot, Tony. My term life didn't work. I had to cancel that. That got too expensive. How am I supposed to leave tax-free assets to my family? That's where permanent life insurance comes in. So think about this, folks, especially those of you who are not even close to retirement. Doesn't it make sense to have an asset that you know is going to happen? We all know we're going to die, right? We spend all of our hard-earned money on all this insurance, and a lot of it we'll never collect on. The one insurance we know is going to pay off tax-free is life insurance, but most of you don't have any of that in place. This makes no sense. So if I have $500,000, which I do, of tax-free life insurance on my place, on me, I know somebody's going to get it when I die, it gives me permission to not only spend the interest, but spend the principal, and it allows me to allow these annuities to work in my best interest so that I can get what I call mailbox money.
Mailbox money!
So folks, if you don't have something like this, if you'd like to look at a true game plan that involves permanent life insurance and permission to spend and enjoy your money, why don't you do this right now? Log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. That's TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Click on that Let's Get Started button or simply call the number on your screen. Okay, when we come back, Steps 3 and 4. How are we going to combat inflation? Good stuff coming your way. I'm Tony Walker. You stay tuned. I'll be right back.
Grew up in a really nice Hikes Point area. Went to Wagner High School. From there, went to Center College. From Center to the University of Louisville. Took a position on a stock crew with Kroger Company, and that was it. 44 years later, I retired at the age of 63. Name's Bob Hancock, and we're at High Point Charities in LaGrange, Kentucky. You know, I had a pension, a 401k. I had stock options, so I had a nice income coming in, so I was able to go early and to get in my career as my second career, which is now at High Point. This started as Mission Crestwood several years ago out of back of a station wagon, and they were actually taking product that was being thrown away by the local grocery stores and retailers. And it was one or two real churches in the area that started it, and now we're probably got 20 to 23 churches that were involved, about 150 volunteers, and we do about 350 families a week just in food and clothing. A lot of times I usually check out with the other retailers in the area. I have a pretty good relationship with the produce terminal up on off Produce Lane. I try to keep the supplies as best I can and make sure that we have some kind of variety for all of our clients. Boone's Butcher Shop down in Bardstown has been a blessing. I was capable of going down there and picking up meat from them just to get product up here, so that was amazing find your passion. That's the first thing I want to say is that if you can find something that isn't work, or it doesn't feel like work, that's what you need to be doing. The thing I did for a living was nice, but this is something I can do of my own volition, and this is something amazing. I get to help other people, and I get to see them hopefully get better, or either by income or food level, nutrition. And I mean, anytime you can give somebody hope, it's just a neat thing to do.
Don't think inflation is real? Take a look at one of the telltale signs that people are having a rough time of it right now. The increase of what's called hardship loans on 401k plans is way up. So whose fault is all of this inflation anyway? Well, according to Janet Yellen, it's your fault. Check out this recent response from Janet Yellen, a person who is supposed to be in control of dealing with inflation and instead of trying to fix the problem. She's arrived at the conclusion that all of this inflation is not the Fed's fault. It's not the fault of politicians spending money like there's no tomorrow. No, it's your fault for splurging on things you don't need in the first place. Folks, this whole Fed printing money and borrowing money out of thin air is the reason the dollar won't buy as much anymore. Let me explain by this simple little graphic that might help you understand what's going on with all this printing of money and why your dollar doesn't buy what it used to. Imagine you walk out to the mailbox, okay? You just go out there to get your paper, you open up the mailbox, and surprisingly, there's all kinds of money in there. Well, of course, you're all excited because you've got all of this free money, so you're thinking you'll be running around and buying a bunch of goods and services because you've got all this money. When all of a sudden you look down the street, every other neighbor's mailbox is stuffed full of money. So Tony, you say, what does this have to do with anything? Well, what's happened is because everybody has more free money than they planned on, the people they're going to spend it with get wind of this and they're going to charge more for the goods and services. So more money printed out of thin air always creates more inflation. You can write that down. Okay, we talked earlier about this 4% rule, and it ties into our third way to combat inflation, and that is not falling for what Wall Street tells you to do, which is take more risk. You see, the 4% rule would work perfect if we lived in a perfect world. You have $500,000, you make 4%, you take out your $20,000 a year, you never touch your principal, and all is well in Mudville. But it doesn't work that way, folks. Wall Street is a world full of volatility, and while we have some of our clients' money over at Wall Street, we don't have all of it, as we're about to see. Okay, and then the fourth reason, now this is really going to catch people off guard because a lot of people have seen this book. It's, Live Well, Die Broke. It's very confusing. People are like, well, wait a minute. You mean I'm supposed to literally die broke? Folks, you're missing the point. Live Well, Die Broke means that we are to enjoy our money while we still can and realize that in the end, we all die broke, meaning you can't take this stuff with you. So what you need is a coordinated game plan from a well-trained retirement specialist that knows how to set this up so that you can accomplish two things. Enjoy your money while you still can without the fear of running out. And we touched on this in the last segment. Let's go back to the whiteboard. I want to cover this one more time. And this is what we call our split IRA concept. Now again, don't make this complicated, folks. We do hundreds of these a year. What we normally do, and this can be with any account, but particularly if you have a 401k with a previous employer, maybe you're over the age of 59 and a half and didn't realize you could roll your 401k over to someone like us. Maybe you've been retired for years, or here's one, many people's advisors are retiring or getting out of the business, and you've got these IRAs and nobody's servicing them, and you have no written game plan. So here's how the split IRA works. First of all, in this example, we would take care of all of what we call the onboarding. So in this example, someone has a $500,000 401k, maybe they've just recently retired or thinking of retiring soon. That would be rolled over to what we call our Charles Schwab platform, okay? And that's where we can purchase your stocks, bonds, mutual funds, bank products, just like your 401k plan. But here's where we're different, folks. The 401k plan, we're not using the 4% rule anymore. This Schwab account is meant for one thing and one thing only, and that is to gain access to your money now. Okay? See, many of you, when you're retired, you're afraid to spend money. Why? Because you're afraid you're going to run out of money. So what we do is we position the Schwab account. We'll put a certain percentage. There's no rule of thumb. In this example, we may have 100,000 with Schwab. We could have 150. Maybe somebody says, Tony, I don't mind taking a little extra risk. We could put out the whole thing over there if you wanted to. But most of our clients who are savers do not wish to do that. So we have access to your money. We link this to your checking account. We can send you a monthly amount if you want. Our office calculates all the withholdings at no additional charge. Folks, we do all of this for 0.8%. That's it. And that's for all the additional planning services that we offer on top of that. Remember that article earlier? They're telling retirement people out there, you better start offering more services for these fees. Well, not only are our fees lower, but we provide about twice the amount of services than most money managers. But here's the beauty of the split IRA, and this is what really makes it sizzle. In this other bucket, or sometimes buckets, we will then put in what's called a fixed annuity. We don't do variable annuities. Those have gotten tarnished a little bit because of their high fees, and I agree that because of the fees, we do not do variable annuities. We use fixed annuities. This can be in the terms of an interest annuity. It can be in terms of mailbox money. It doesn't matter. We'll help you figure that out. Incidentally, I've written a great booklet on annuities you can download free of charge. It's called Annuities Made Easy. And in this booklet, you'll learn the pros and cons of annuities. So download it at TonyWalkerFinancial.com, or you can call the number on your screen. We'll be happy to mail it to you. So what happens is Tony Walker Financial orchestrates all of this. We oversee the Schwab account. We do all the rebalancing. We do all the fund selection. We oversee the annuities. And more importantly, we're going to help you monitor your progress and make sure you stay the course with our proprietary written game plan. So if you're sitting there saying, Tony, yeah, I am worried about inflation. I didn't realize I could take control of my situation by working with somebody like you who's got experience in the art of retirement planning. Why don't you do this right now? Why don't you log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. When you get there, you're just going to click on that Let's Get Started button. Or if it's more convenient for you, just call the number on your screen. That's TonyWalkerFinancial.com, or give us a call at any time. Well, what does the Bible have to say about this whole notion of guarantees and providing more for your family and understanding what to do with this money and who's going to be in charge of it? Well, some good stuff coming your way. Let me get a cup of coffee. There it is. I'll be right back.
Tired of the roller coaster ride of the stock market? Let Tony Walker show you how to smooth out the ride with your money. Log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com and let's get started.
The theme of today's show is trying to figure out how to squeeze every red ounce of spending we can from this man-made piece of currency we refer to as the dollar bill. And as we have learned, the secret to combating the effects of inflation is not by cutting back on your spending, although that can certainly help. It's not by taking more risk with your 401k by blindly tossing in all this money into the stock market and hoping for the best. And the solution to inflation is not, of course, delivering pizzas at night. No, combating inflation begins with a mindset that one must accept the fact that the value of a dollar won't buy much anymore, never has, never will. That's because over the long term, no matter how much money the Fed decides to print, nor the politicians in Washington keep borrowing, the value of this dollar will go down over time and we will always have inflation, period. And of all the ways I deal with this natural phenomenon of a dollar not buying much anymore is not to stew and worry over what the cost of a gallon of gasoline might be in the future or how much I'll spend at the grocery, but rather I'll deal with the uncertainty of the future and money by turning to God and realizing one very important thing about this thing we call life, money, and the pursuit of happiness. I call it the live well, die broke philosophy of living. And it is something that was born out of working in the financial trenches for more than 38 years and watching the lives of more than 15,000 savers play out. It's a philosophy that is also born out of Scripture and in reading and studying from some of the greatest people who ever walked the face of the earth. Take, for instance, Job, who had it all and lost it all. Here's his reaction to the whole mess that ensued and how to deal with it. In Job 121, he says, "Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I will return. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away." Here's the reality, folks. You and I came into this world naked as a jaybird. We were born with no money, no food, no clothing, no nothing. And then one day, after this walk here on earth is over, we will die the same way as how we came. No need for money, no need for food, no need for clothing, no need for nothing the world has to offer. So how are we supposed to respond to such dire news of nakedness? Well, according to Job, he had lost it all, and his response was very simple. He simply said, "Blessed be the name of the Lord." So what does blessed look like? Well, it looks like no matter what your circumstances might be, whether they are good or bad, whether you have more money than you know what to do with or not enough to even fill up the car's tank, assuming you agree with Job and acknowledge that you really can't take this stuff with you, why not turn to God and bless Him? Which simply means to hold our God in reverence and honor by worshiping Him. Well, how do we worship Him? We just did by acknowledging our frailty, our limited time here on earth, and that He is in control of what we have and what we get to keep. So friend, you want to learn to stop worrying about the future and worrying about how much of this dollar is going to buy in the future? Stop. Instead, do this. Say what Job said. Blessed be the name of the Lord. It's a live well, die broke attitude that will not only deal with the worries of the world, but remind you of who we are and why we're put here on earth in the first place. You got it? Well, good. So how about you? Are you frustrated with all the gloom and doom news about inflation or how you need to take more money and risk it in the stock market rather than playing it safe? Well, here's something you can do right now. Talk to me, Tony Walker, the owner of the company with more than 38 years of experience in meeting in person with over 15,000 savers. Savers just like you who want a personal relationship with a firm that's local and experienced in the art of retirement planning. To get started is very easy. All you got to do is take advantage of something we call the free 10-minute fiduciary phone call, and here's how it works. You can either log on to our website at TonyWalkerFinancial.com, and when you get there, just click on the Let's Get Started button, and a phone call will be arranged for you and I to talk briefly about your situation. Then if it warrants, I'll be happy to meet with you in person at either our Bowling Green, Louisville, or Lexington, Kentucky offices. Or if the internet's not your thing and you'd rather just give us a call, just call the number on your screen. Well, we look forward to seeing you next week. Actually, next week we've got a special guest in the studio, our own fellow fiduciary Heather Hughes. Some really good stuff coming your way. But between now and then, you remember, if all else fails, you be worry-free. Make it a good one.